I have no idea where my microphone is. Debhairduin agus fáilte. Hello and welcome. It's Misha Amy the Crafty Cailleach, and I usually make videos about Irish history, folklore, food and magic. But today I'm doing a little bit more of a relaxed video. So this week I actually took off. I took a week's holidays off. I took a week of annual leave to work on my thesis. So I wasn't doing my day job this week, and I will have a separate video on talking about some of the things I've been doing in terms of research for my thesis, probably next week or maybe the week after. But today's video, I had an idea to do a kind of a book haul video because I have bought a lot of books that relate to my research interests and topics, and because my research interests relate to and overlap with what I talk about on my channel, I thought maybe people would be interested to see what books I'm reading, what books I've gotten recently. And also I put out a request for some questions for a Q&A. I like doing a Q&A every now and again. It lets me kind of interact with you who watch the videos more. So earlier this week, or at the start of this week, I put up a picture on my Instagram and on my Facebook of my thesis reading book crate. This is my thesis reading book crate. This is not exhaustive. This is just the stuff I'm working through at the moment for the topics and parts of the thesis I'm working on at the moment. It is very much not all of the books. I have so many more books. I also have a whole bunch of like articles and papers and other research, and I have so much reading. A lot of these books are recent purchases. There's one or two recent gifts in there. Most of the things on my wish lists for like birthdays or anything like that would be books. So, and usually if I'm treating myself recently, it's been a book. And people seemed to be interested in some of the books that were in the crate, so I'm going to talk about them. I'm going to drink my coffee. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my thesis because I haven't actually talked about my thesis yet on my channel, and I also want to talk about it because it is related to upcoming content that I will be doing on the channel as well, which may be of interest to people. So without further ado, I'm going to go through the books first, then I'm going to do the Q&A, and then I'll talk about a little bit about my thesis at the end. So when I was off this week, I went to Dungarvan to the county archives, and I went to the National Library as well. The National Library is up in Dublin. So when I was up in Dublin, I also had a couple of things that I wanted to get, and I had not intended to actually go to the shop that I'm going to talk about now. So Ulysses Rare Books is up in Dublin. It's off the top of my head, I can't remember what street it's on, but it's somewhere in the region of like Grafton Street. It's just off Grafton Street. It's at 10 Duke Street, Dublin 2. So just off Grafton Street. And they have so many books, but so many very, very old volumes of books, first editions, special editions. They have like first edition Edgar Allan Poe book. Like they have so many books that I want to buy, but I'm not a millionaire, so I can't buy them. But the book that I got there, while it was pricey, and definitely if this book wasn't out of print and there was even a glimmer of hope it might be reprinted soon, I wouldn't have bought it. But this book was published in 1972 and it has not been reprinted. It is available digitally online, and I will link it below in the description, and I will link all of the books that I'll talk about below in the description, and if they're available on WorldCat or archive.org, I will link them below as well. This book is The Year in Ireland, a calendar by Kevin Danaher, and this is like one of the quintessential books that anyone I know that is interested in Irish folklore and Irish folklore scholarship, it's basically like not the Bible, but it is a bit of a sacred text. So The Year in Ireland is a book by Kevin Danaher. Kevin Danaher was very much involved with the Irish Folklore Commission. He was a lecturer in UCD as well in Irish folklore. He was also a folklore collector that went around Ireland collecting folklore, and also a scholar, like an academic. So the information in this book is correct, on point. It is referenced by a lot of other people that are talking about Irish folklore, and it is a concise but comprehensive overview of all of the different festivals, celebrations, customs, folklore, etc. to do with Irish tradition, history, culture. So this book was €75, but it is one of those things that, again, it is available online. So if you can access it online, I would access it online. The reason I got the physical book is because I have wanted this book for about 18 months. It has been on my wish list. And because it's out of print, it is one of those things where you're effectively keeping an eye out in books like Ulysses, in charity shops, thrift shops, Amazon, anywhere online that sells secondhand books. I have been keeping an eye out, but this one is gold dust. It is like literal gold dust. So it's one of those things that I had money aside that if I ever saw it, I would just buy it. So that's why I bought it. That's why I spent €75 on this book. But in saying that, I have seen people pay a lot more for it as well. I've seen it on Amazon for €150. This one it's a first edition. It came with the dust jacket and everything. It was originally £3 and 42.5 pence. And you can see that there. So if you see it and you have the money to spend on it, and you're very interested in Irish folklore, or you know somebody that's very interested in Irish folklore and you're a generous person and you want to buy it for them, I know a lot of people that are very envious of the fact that I have this book now. So that was one thing I got very, very recently. This is the most recent book that I bought, and I'm so happy that I own it. It does not have anything to do really with my thesis, but because I am someone who, as you'll know if you watch my content, I am very much into celebrating the seasons and recognizing the seasons and understanding the traditions and folklore and folk customs that we have in Ireland. And this book is just for me. I don't have to justify it to anyone, and I'm really happy that I found it. And I'm really grateful to the 2 people that were working in the shop who looked for it. It wasn't on the shelf upstairs, and they have a downstairs section where they have more bookstores. The guy in the shop spent like 10 minutes looking for it for me and then couldn't find it, and then just as I was about to leave the shop, found it and like shouted after me. So I'm so happy that I have this. So that is the first book. So if you don't like looking at books online and you can't access the Kevin Danaher book online at the link below in the description, I will, if I have to, I will use online sources and I will use online books, but for me personally, reading on a screen is very difficult. I prefer having a physical copy of something, and because I work 9 to 5 Monday to Friday at a screen all day, and then I'm editing videos or I'm doing research for my master's after work, I'm at a screen pretty much 14-15 hours a day. So when I can get a physical book, I will. But if you don't want to be at a screen reading it online, it's not accessible as well to everybody reading online and reading ebooks and things like that, depending on the format of the ebook. But I'm pretty sure the WorldCat one, it is text searchable, but I'm not sure if it's compatible with screen readers and things like that. So it's not accessible to everybody. But a good alternative, well, actually 2 good alternatives. One I just happen to have because this is one of the books I've got recently. Before I saw the Kevin Danaher book, I got this one by Marion McGarry, which is Irish Customs and Rituals, How Our Ancestors Celebrated the Seasons. And I haven't read it cover to cover, but I had a quick flick through it. I checked it out with reviews and things, because sometimes these books can be hit and miss. So I do tend to do my research. I look up Goodreads. I will use internet searches. I will also refer to like recommended lists by people that I know. And this book did come recommended, and I can completely see why. So this book by Marion McGarry has first of all, there's references in the back, and I love when there's references in the back because then you have more places to go to read about the information you're interested in. But also, you know that Marion has done her work in basically looking up where the information she's compiling in the book is coming from. It is done as well in, I think it follows the Gregorian calendar, pretty much. So the first festival that she goes through is Imbolc, which is at this time of year in spring, and then goes through the kind of seasons of the year and ritual customs, similar to the Kevin Danaher book, in a more concise manner. It's very, very concise. It's comprehensive enough, but it is very concise. It gives you the basic information that you need, and then it gives you the references so that if you're interested in a specific ritual or a specific custom, you can then go to the back of the book and you have more reading to do then, and more information that you're able to get from further study and further research. There's also links to various records on ducas.ie, the ones that I would reference as well in my videos, so you can go then and do more research. Marion in this book as well also references the Kevin Danaher book quite a lot. So yeah, if you can't get the Kevin Danaher book, this is a really good alternative. Another really good alternative would be Laura O'Brien's Irish Witchcraft from an Irish Witch. Now, I don't have a physical copy of that one, so I'll put the cover of it here. But I have it on Kindle. It is available on Kindle. So I do have a Kindle ebook version because I got it before the second edition, the revised edition that Lora did a couple of years ago was... Hello. Lora did a revised edition a couple of years ago, and it was available first on Kindle and then it was available in print. And I just didn't want to wait the 2 months or the 2 weeks or something that it was. I wanted it like straight away, so I just got it on Kindle. I haven't gotten around to getting a physical copy of it yet. But Laura's book goes through not just Irish witchcraft, but the seasons of the year and the celebrations that are linked to those seasons of the year. So that is so either of those two, and again, I will link them down below, are good alternatives. The next book that I got, again, kind of in keeping with the folklore and the folklore and legends and that kind of side of things, I got Ireland's Animals, Myths, Legends and Folklore by Niall Coitir, and I love these books. I absolutely love this set of books. I think there's 5 or 6 of them. There might be more. I have the trees one, so he has Ireland's trees, and then there's another one that's Ireland's flowers, and there's, I think, Ireland's birds as well. Maybe I have the birds one, I can't remember. I have 2 of them upstairs, and they are really, really good. The only criticism I have about any of his work so far is in the trees one, he does mention Robert Graves, and just in relation to Oein and the Celtic tree astrology, which I didn't love, but other than that, it is really, really good information. Really just going through a lot of stuff. Also the kind of older legends, like Fionn McCool and things like that. It gives the Irish name for each thing, so it was the same in the trees one. It gives you, for example, I've just literally flipped through and I've landed on the otter page. So you have otter, and then in Irish or Oscailga, Madra Ishka, which is literally water dog. And you have a really nice illustration of an otter here as well. Really love these series of books. I'm slowly collecting all of them. So if you are interested in Irish animals or animals of Ireland or trees or anything like that, I would recommend getting these books. Again, there are references in the back as well, so if you are looking for further reading or anything on them, you have the resources in the back as well. To kind of round off the folklore and kind of legend aspect of this, kind of in keeping with folklore as well, this book is one I got for Christmas. Dylan actually got me this. This was one of the books that the second I saw it advertised and it was announced that this book was coming out, it went straight to the top of my wish list. So this book I really like the cover and how this book is just composed. So this book is called Weave. It's entitled Weave, and it's with Oein Debhairduin and Deirdre Sullivan, kind of right side up, and then you flip it over then when you get about halfway through, and it's right side up. One side is Deirdre Sullivan and one side is Oein Debhairduin, and it's a collection of folk tales that again follow the 8 kind of points of the year. So the 4 fire festivals, the cross-quarter days, so the equinoxes and the solstices. I have not read this yet. I'm dying to read it, but I have not read it yet. I have too much other reading to do at the moment, so I haven't read Ireland's Animals actually either. I've given a flick through them, and I've given this a flick through, but I want to be able to sit down and properly read this. Oein Debhairduin, if you've seen my interview with him, you will know who he is. If you've not seen my interview with him, please go watch that. It was one of the best conversations I've had with someone in a very long time that I just kind of met. I didn't know Oein personally before that. So when we met online to chat about his culture, being a Mincair or an Irish traveller, and the folklore and his own work in the realm of folklore collection, his lived experience as an Irish traveller, and the different projects that he's working on, I just wanted to chat to him for hours. And his book that he brought out a couple of years ago, Why the Moon Travels, is a collection of stories that he has effectively compiled from Irish traveller folk tales. So when I saw he had another book coming out with more folk tales, that was it. That went to the top of my list. It was one thing that I was like, if you're getting me something for Christmas, I really want this book. So if you're interested, I highly recommend getting this book. Again, we'll link it down below. I will try to link it if you're in Ireland or in Europe. I will leave a link to the actual publishing house, because you can buy direct from the publishing house. Obviously, if you have to use Amazon or something like that, do that if you can't get it through another means. But I do try and avoid Amazon where I can. So if I can buy it direct from the publisher, I will do that. So that is Weave. That is another one that I got recently. The next one I'm going to talk about is one that I was actually asked about. I haven't gotten this recently. I actually got it, I think I got it last year or the year before. I can't actually remember. But this book is, you can see I have my notes and everything in it, is the book of the Cailleach Stories of the Wise Woman Healer. This is one I remember I did a TikTok when people were asking me for research and resources for Irish spirituality and things like that. The book of the Cailleach by Gearóid Ó Cailleach is a compilation of stories of the Wise Woman Healer, so folk stories and legends about on Cailleach. So the Cailleach Beara, the hag of Beara, the Beara Peninsula in West Cork, would be one of the most famous Cailleach or hags. So you might have seen my video, What Even is a Cailleach? So Cailleach is the word in Irish for witch. So it would be commonly used as witch, but it also means hag, it means veiled one, it means a variety of different things that I go through in that video that I do. But she is a figure, she is the goddess of winter, she is a land goddess, a sovereignty goddess, and there's a lot of folklore and a lot of legends around her. So this book is a fantastic dive into the lore, the stories, the symbology, the kind of role of woman in Irish folklore and mythology, the kind of symbolism of the different stories and stages. There's also references to the Banfassa, the Banquincha, the Banshee. The way Gearóid approaches as well the methodology is something I'm trying to emulate in my own academic stuff. Those are being studied academically. It can sometimes take on this dubious, skeptical, dismissive tone, but Ó Cailleach doesn't do that. He actually, in the methodology, right before he dives into things in the book, he talks about effectively respecting the fact that these are beliefs that are held by people, and so it was going to be presented in the way that it is presented as a belief, and that wasn't going to be discouraged or dismissed, and it was going to be taken into account in the methodology and the approach of this body of work, which is a fantastic body of work. It's very accessible for something that is so academic, which again is another problem with a lot of academic texts. They're not always super accessible to people that have a general interest in something. Now, it is also a hefty volume. There is quite a lot of paper. There's quite a lot of information in the text as well. It's not kind of done in, for example, as a concise manner as say Marion McGarry would do it. It is very much concepts and things are teased out in it, which I really, really like. So I would highly recommend that if you're interested in An Cailleach, if you're interested in female spirituality, if you're, I'm using bunny quotes because sometimes the new age female spirituality stuff is not inclusive. We'll just leave it there. Because otherwise I'll go on a rant. But this is not that. It's very much just like these are the stories, this is this, and it's, you know, not necessarily about the divine feminine, but it is an aspect of the divine feminine or the woman in spirituality and female figures in spirituality in the Irish context. So I really, really recommend that. When I put up the request on Facebook to see if anyone had any questions, Jessie actually asked me if I had read this and if I recommended it, and I have read it, and I do recommend it. It's really, really good. Another question that Jessie actually asked was, and this is my segue into my next book, was, had I read this book by Andrew Snedden, which is Witchcraft and Magic in Ireland, and it is from the Palgrave series of historical studies in witchcraft and magic. So this is brand new. It got delivered maybe 10 days ago. So I have not read this cover to cover. I had a digital version of it, and one point I want to make, and I actually want to touch on a question, a couple of questions actually, or comments that came in on the posts. Which one was on Instagram from Ninth Wave Designs, and the other one was Susie on the Facebook post. Both commented and were complaining about how expensive the Palgrave books are. And Ninth Wave Designs asked, why are they so expensive? To be honest, I don't know why they're so expensive. I would love to know. To be honest, I think it's a bit of a scam. I don't think, from what I know about academic publishing and publishing bodies like Palgrave, I don't know if this applies to Palgrave specifically, but a lot of academics that I have spoken to about publishing and publishing books have told me that they effectively don't get as much money as you would think from these books. So say if a book costs as a textbook 70 to 90 euro or even more, like some of them are way more as well. That person might get a once-off payment for a contribution, they might not. But effectively, I've heard of people contributing to something like an anthology of essays, 10 to 15 other academics, all contributing to this one book. And the book is published and then it is sold by the publishing house for, let's say, €100. And that person that's contributed time and effort, and often it's the fruits of a postdoctoral research project, or sometimes it's a PhD project that they've effectively written a paper on and then contributed to an anthology. Sometimes it's an entire book. Sometimes they've written an entire book. Again, I'm not sure if this is the case with Andrew Snedden's book. This is just me ranting about the cost of academic books. But I have heard of people getting paid 50 cents per copy sold when the publishing house is selling it for 100. So I do think that academic publishing is a complete scam, and I know most academics that I talk to also agree with that. So that's the kind of ranty answer to why these books cost so much. What I will say, and a top tip, is if you've identified some of these books, be it Palgrave, be it a different publishing house, Cambridge sometimes has a lot of books that are really interesting to me and I can't buy because they're too expensive. If it's one chapter within the book that you're really interested in, email that author, email that academic, find that you'll be able to find them on academia.edu. You can also check there. Sometimes people will upload their own chapters to things. You can also just find them generally on their education profile, LinkedIn, or if they're associated with a particular learning institution, they'll generally have some kind of research profile on that learning institution's website. Find their email them, and just very nicely and politely ask them if they wouldn't mind sending over a copy. 9 times out of 10, 99% of them will send you over a copy, because everyone knows what it's like to be a student struggling to pay ridiculous amounts of money for academic books that you don't actually need. My other top tip is if you do want the full book, like me, and you like having the book there for reference, you want to read it, it's something that you want in your collection, wait for a sale. Palgrave have semi-frequent sales. They're not super frequent, but they have a 70% sale every year. They also will have sales, like you can get discount codes at different times of the year to bring down the price, which helps immensely, and is the only reason that I have the 3 books that I'm going to talk about now, because they're all from Palgrave. So I bought these at the end of December in the Palgrave 70% off sale. So instead of spending almost €300 for 3 books, these books cost me, I'm pretty sure they cost me something like €60 or under. It's like €56 or something like that for these 3 books. So The Witchcraft and Magic in Ireland by Andrew Snedden is amazing. It goes through the history of witchcraft and magic in Ireland. It goes through the laws. It goes through the witchcraft trials, demonic possession, early modern Ireland. It goes into modern Ireland, and it's just a really good all-round reference book. Again, very accessible in the language used, and lots of references and further reading and resources in the back of it that you can then go and learn more information. Andrew Snedden is also, I believe, is coming out with a book on the Island McGee witchcraft trials. He's been doing a really big project there. So again, another tip would be to follow. I would recommend following Andrew Snedden on Twitter. A lot of academics are very active on Twitter, even though Twitter is Twitter at the moment, and it's not great. It's nice to be able to follow people like Andrew and see what they're up to and see what their research projects are working on. The Island McGee Witchcraft project has also spun into a graphic novel or comic style medium, and I will link that below. It's really interesting. I will do a video at some point in the future on the Island McGee Witchcraft trials, bouncing off Andrew's work, but I would really recommend this if you are interested in the history of witchcraft in Ireland, because it is quite different to the history of witchcraft elsewhere, like in North America and across Europe. It obviously is influenced by those things, but it is different, and it's really great to have scholarship that's accessible on that, even though it is super expensive to buy this if you don't have a 70% off sale code. The next book that I got in the Palgrave sale was Women, Reform and Resistance in Ireland, 1850 to 1890, and that's edited by Christina S. Brophy and Carla DeLay. So this book I have had on my wish list for almost a year. So when I decided on my thesis topic, I started doing secondary research, looking at readings, looking at the current scholarship on what I'm looking at and what I'm researching, and this book popped up. So this is a collection of essays from various different scholars looking at women's history in Ireland from the famine to the mid 20th century. So there are essays about, for example, women's sectarianism and poverty in 19th century Dublin, welfare work, female emigrants and the Catholic Church in the 20th century. Also an exploration on the types of punishments that convict women would have to deal with and other offences that would have been committed by women, Irish women in the Free State. There's a really interesting section or chapter by Christina S. Brophy, who's one of the editors, and it's talking about keening or an creina, the lament songs that women would be hired to do at Irish funerals, and the kind of falling out of tradition that went through and why, and the social reasons and the historical reasons behind it. Again, that's something I'm planning to do a video on, so I will reference back to that when I do the video on it. The one that kind of interested me in getting the book was Eamor Quinn's chapter on the widow's curse, because that is what I am researching at the moment for my thesis. If you've followed my channel for any amount of time, or you've seen any of my videos with the Real Revolutionaries looking at women rebelling and resisting and being activists in fighting for rights and all of that stuff, you'll know that I would love this book. So this book, I think originally was €109, I believe, and I got it for 28 euro or something in the sale. So yeah, I'm really glad I didn't purchase this previously to the thing going on sale. I was trying to save up for it, but 100 euro is a lot to drop in a book when this is an example of someone having an article up online. So Eileen Moore Quinn actually had the chapter and had the full paper up online, so I was able to get that. I did want access to the other essays because the other essays will also help inform my thesis and are also personally interesting to me, interesting to the kind of content I do on the channel, and interested in just my own general research. So I did need the volume, but I didn't need it straight away when I saw the book. And I definitely didn't need it for 109 euro for the book. If I was in a position where there was no 70% off code, I was prepared to email all of the authors in this book to see if they would send on their chapter. And then the final book that I got from Palgrave, the third one, was this one, which is The Irish New Woman by Tina O'Toole. And this one is a little bit different than the others. So this one is an actual, it is history, it's social history, but it's also an exploration of the literary examples of women at the end of the 19th century into the 20th century. So there's different chapters here looking at like feminism and the famine, the concept of the Irish new woman, and the concept of the new woman being like the 20th century woman, the kind of the new generation of women and what that meant at the time. So there's there's explorations on the new woman and the land war, the new woman and the boy, which is a exploration of gender at the end of the 19th and start of the 20th century. So I'm really looking forward to properly getting stuck into this. I have read a couple of chapters here and there, but it's just really interesting, particularly around the exploration of the woman's place, which is very topical at the moment in Ireland with our referendum coming up soon to change the constitution. This would go into the whys and the hows of that particular constitutional bit being in Bunrocks and Heron, and also how gender roles in Ireland developed and how that was influenced by economic, social, religious, and political things. So really interesting again. Something that is kind of informing my thesis. I didn't need to get this book, but when I saw it and when I have lots of further content planned and when I had a 70% off voucher code, I was going to get this. Okay, staying on the theme of women and women's history and revolutionary women, this book is a local history book that was very recently published. So this is a body of work is by Christina Knight O'Connor and Eddie Cantwell, and it's Waterford Women of the Revolution 1914 to 1923. So if you have seen my Real Revolutionary videos, when I was talking about Cumann na Mban and Inínich na hÉireann, which were women's political activist societies and organisations, I would have referred to a book by Sinead McCool, which I have upstairs, which is basically talking about the women behind these movements, the individual women behind the movements. And this book is effectively that for Waterford specifically. So it's a regional local history book. Again, as someone who is interested in women's history in 19th and 20th century Ireland and being from Waterford, I needed to buy this book. This was only €25. I will leave a link down below because you can buy it from the Waterford Museum, and you can also, we got this in the book centre in Waterford, who also have an online shop. So this goes through various different Waterford women and their roles and links to the revolution, particularly in the period from the Easter Rising and the lead up to the Easter Rising, and also into the Civil War and the establishment of the Free State, which again links into the previous book I was talking about, that kind of era, effectively. So I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into this. Again, it's not something I can get stuck into right away because it's not directly linked to my thesis, Though, to be honest, I know when I look through it, I'm going to find things that will be of help to informing my thesis. So this is not top of my reading list at the moment, but it is something I will be giving a glance over before I submit my thesis. The final book that I'm going to talk about is this one by Thomas Waters. It's Cursed Britain, A History of Witchcraft and Black Magic in Modern Times. So this one is, again, very accessible. This wasn't one of the Palgrave books. I think this one was under €20. I think I got it on the book depository. But it's one that I wanted for a long time. I'm pretty sure it's available on Kindle as well. But Thomas Waters is a social historian and looks at magic and witchcraft. He's also written a fantastic article on the art of cursing, a kind of an overview of the current scholarship of cursing magic in Ireland. This book, while it is looking at Britain, does have some references to Irish magic because Irish immigrants would have gone over to the UK, and there are references to Irish immigrants using magic, cursing and pishogues in UK judicial records. So this is really interesting. I really love it. It's very accessible. This is one that is helping to inform my thesis because I am looking at cursing magic in Ireland and there's not a lot on it yet. That's what I'm doing. So this is great. Thomas Waters as well has some really great research, and I would highly recommend this if you're interested again in the history of witchcraft in the UK and Ireland. I would recommend getting this. It's not super expensive compared to the other volumes, and if you're looking to get Anders Neden's book and you can't because it is very expensive, this would be a good alternative. It does focus on cursing magic, but it does talk about witchcraft and the history of witchcraft as well, but definitely from a more malevolent kind of way. It doesn't indicate or suggest that witches were malevolent, but it does focus on the more malevolent forms of magic. So those are 10 books that I've gotten recently. This video is turning out to be quite long. So Emily on Instagram asked me, what, if anything, have I learned from doing the masters that I didn't know before? So one thing that I have learned that's really honestly been causing difficulty is just how much my ADHD brain affects me trying to do work, and my tendency to work to the deadline rather than working consistently before getting to the deadline and not having to deal with the panic. That has not been going well, though that has not been going well for various other reasons, for various other things that have happened in my life, which have also impacted not doing content. So it's not all the ADHD, but it's a bit of the ADHD. Another thing I have learned is, and I'm going to try to not go on a rant, but the time period that I'm looking at the moment is the 19th century. And because I'm looking at the 19th century, there is a lack of records about and by the demographic that I'm looking at. The demographic that I'm looking at is the labouring classes, the peasantry, the working class, the tenant class. So what I'm learning is that the people that were writing the records at that time were the ruling class, and doing history work and doing research like this, when you're someone like me who gets very incensed about the type of xenophobic remarks and classist remarks of people on other people, it's very difficult and it's very draining and like emotionally and mentally draining to do that type of research. It doesn't dissuade me from doing the research. It is just an added burden of doing the research. So that's been annoying, but it's been annoying on another level because it means that the ruling class has dictated, as well as Irish oral, the fact that Irish culture was very much an oral practiced tradition, that there's not a lot of records for me to actually go with to help with my thesis. So that has been frustrating. And I think if I had, actually no, I wouldn't. I was about to say, I think that if I'd known this, I would have changed my thesis topic, but I wouldn't have. I know I wouldn't have. But it is something that I have learned through the process. Something else that I've really learned through the process is that I'm very interdisciplinary in my approach to things, which is not a bad thing, but it does mean that I think I'm doing more reading than is strictly minimally necessary. And that is because I'm the kind of person that likes to look at things from a social point of view, from a psychological point of view, and from like a political point of view, not necessarily just the kind of facts and history that are on the page. I like to have a nice, nuanced, comprehensive kind of context to things. So those are some things that I've learned about me and the process of history. I've learned a few other things as well, but I will leave those for later videos when I'm discussing my thesis. So my thesis. As I said, I'm looking at the Widow's Curse and cursing magic as it was used in the 19th century in Ireland. So a lot of that has to do with interactions between the working class and the landed gentry or the landlords, and the kind of rebellions and land agitation that would have been going on in the 19th century. So I did talk about this a little bit when I was talking to Tara Tine over on her channel, Tara Tine, where we spoke about the famine and the kind of influences of that time period on Irish property, and probably things that have caused generations of trauma in the Irish psyche, which again, nobody talks about. But me and Tara had a bit of a chat about that. So if you'd like to go watch that and watch me talk about that a little bit more and tease that out with Tara, I'll leave a link down in the description below. But I will be talking about it a lot more in the coming months. So over the next few weeks and months, what I will be doing is segmenting my thesis and my reading and research that I have done for this thesis and this entire 20,000 word project that I'm working on. I will be condensing that down and segmenting it into shorter parts and also into videos for my YouTube channel. So as I've already said, because of my research interests and the content I've already done on this channel that looks at Irish history, folklore and magic and food, I am basically going to be presenting on my thesis for the next few months. There's also things that aren't necessarily directly in my thesis that are offshoots and related to topics that are in my thesis. So I have I have about 50 videos planned, and some of those will be shorter, some of those will be longer, but I have a lot of content planned, and kind of part of me not having content done at the end of last year was down to the fact that I was trying to get the research done for my thesis, and then my thesis is going to basically provide you a lot of content through me doing videos talking about different aspects of my thesis, different aspects of my research, and getting to share that with you and tease that out and talk about it. So that's what I'm doing, and that's kind of it. I've been recording for an hour now, so I don't know how long this video is actually going to turn out. But if you've made it this far, gur míle maith as teag. Thank you very much for coming and listening to me. I think if you've made it this far, you're someone who is interested in this, or maybe you just stuck this on in the background while you were doing something, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I'm really excited about the content that is coming up in the next few weeks and months. I will have some slightly different content as well. I am thinking about sharing my research project that I did for my HDip in psychology, because I do think it would be interesting. I do know it is like it's still an interesting topic to me, and it's kind of a psychological look at a phenomenon that has been called an illusion but has also been used in divinatory and mediumship techniques, which might be interesting. So if you are interested in hearing about that, let me know. And if you have any other books that you'd like me to review or you have questions about, let me know in the comments. If you've gotten this far in the video and you wouldn't mind just liking the button if you haven't already, hit the thumbs up down below, because that lets YouTube know that people like my content, and then that will show my content to more people that may like it, and thus you're spreading joy through the algorithm of YouTube. Also, I do have a goal of trying to get monetized this year on YouTube, and for that, more people need to see my videos and more people need to watch my videos. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. And I will be back next week with another video. Gur míle mágat agus slán go full. I will see you soon.